The auctioneer's gavel cracked like a whip against the wooden podium, and the crowd fell silent. Sold. $1 to the gentleman in the faded blue jacket. The words echoed through the dusty town hall, and Marcus Reed stood frozen, his hand still raised, clutching a single crumpled bill. Hadn't they meant to bid? They come to the auction in Willow Creek, a forgotten speck of a town in rural Michigan, out of curiosity, not conviction. The house, a crumbling Victorian with peeling paint and a sagging porch, was a relic no one wanted. Yet, somehow, it was now his. For $1. The weight of that truth settled over him like the dust mote swirling in the late afternoon sun. What had he just done? Marcus was no stranger to starting over. At 38, Eddie left behind a life in Chicago that had chewed him up and spit him out, a corporate job that drained his soul, a divorce that left him hollow, and a city that never slowed down long enough for him to catch his breath. Eddie packed his pickup truck with what little he owned and driven north, chasing a vague notion of peace. Willow Creek, with its shuttered storefronts and quiet fields, seemed as good a place as any to disappear. The house, though, was an accident. Eddie raised his hand on impulse, half joking, when the auctioneer called out the absurdly low starting bid. No one else bid against him. Now, as he stood outside the dilapidated structure, its warped windows staring back like weary eyes, he wondered if this was fate or folly. The townsfolk didn't they know what to make of Marcus? He was an outsider, a city man with calloused hands and a guarded smile. They nodded politely when he bought coffee at the diner or picked up nails at the hardware store, but their eyes held questions. Why was he here? What did he want with a house no one else dared touch? The house had a history, they whispered. Old Mrs. Hargrove had lived there until she passed, alone, 5 years ago. Her son had vanished decades earlier, leaving behind rumors of tragedy and a daughter no one ever saw. The place was cursed, some said. Haunted, others claimed. Marcus didn't believe in ghosts, but he felt the weight of the house's secrets as he pried open the front door, its hinges screaming in protest. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and memory. Faded wallpaper peeled in curls, and the floorboards groaned under his weight. He wandered through the rooms, each one a time capsule of someone else's life, yellowed photographs in cracked frames, a chilled shoe abandoned in a corner, a piano with keys stuck silent. In the kitchen, he found a stack of unopened letters, their edges brittle, addressed to a Clara Hargrove. The name stirred something in him, a pang he couldn't place. He set them aside, telling himself they'd deal with them later. For now, he had work to do. The house was a wreck, but it was his wreck. Maybe, he thought, fixing it could fix something in him, though. Days turned into weeks as Marcus poured himself into the house. He tore out rotted beams, patched the roof, and scrubbed decades of grime from the walls. The townsfolk began to notice. Old Mrs. Thompson from the hardware store dropped off a box of tools he didn't need anymore. Mrs. Delaney, the diner owner, left casseroles on his porch with notes that read, "Don't starve, city boy." Marcus wasn't used to kindness without strings, but he accepted it, quietly grateful. He worked from dawn to dusk, his hands blistered, his back aching, but the house began to change. The porch stood straighter. The windows gleamed. It was still a long way from beautiful, but it was starting to feel like a home. One crisp October morning, as Marcus hammered new shingles onto the roof, he heard a voice below. "Mister, what are you doing up there?" He looked down to see a girl, no older than 7, standing on the cracked sidewalk. Her hair was a tangle of auburn curls, and her coat was too big, slipping off one shoulder. She clutched a tattered stuffed rabbit, its hair half sewn. Marcus climbed down the ladder, wiping sweat from his brow. "Fixing the house," he said, offering a smile. "That's your name?" "Lila," she said, her eyes wide and curious. "Do you live here now?" "Guess I do," Marcus replied, crouching to her level. "You live nearby?" She pointed across the street to a trailer park, where a cluster of weathered homes sat in the shadow of towering oaks. "With my mom," she said. "She says this house is spooky." "Is it?" Marcus chuckled. "Not spooky. Years old. Needs some love, that's all." Lila tilted her head, studying him. "Are you gonna be my new daddy?" The question hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. He froze, his mouth dry, searching for words. Ooh. I'm just Marcus, he stammered. I don't think I'm anybody's daddy. Lila's face fell, but only for a moment. Okay, she said, shrugging. Can I help you fix the house? Marcus hesitated. He wasn't good with kids, never had been. His ex-wife had wanted children, but they always said he wasn't ready. Now, faced with this small, honest girl, he felt a tug he couldn't explain. Sure, he said finally. You can hand me nails. From that day on, Lila became a fixture at the house. She'd show up after school, her backpack bouncing, ready to help. She handed him tools, chatted about her favorite books, and asked endless questions. WHYS the sky so blue today? Do you think trees talk to each other? Did you ever have a dog? Marcus answered as best he could, surprised by how her presence filled the empty spaces in the house, and in him. He learned her mother, Sarah, worked double shifts at a factory 30 miles away, leaving Lila with neighbors or alone for long hours. Lila never complained, but Marcus saw the loneliness in her eyes, a mirror of his own. One afternoon, while sorting through a closet, Marcus found a box labeled Clara's things. Inside were drawings, a child's clumsy sketches of flowers and stars, signed with a looping say. His heart sank as he realized Clara must have been Mrs. Argrove's granddaughter, the one the townsfolk whispered about. He asked Lila if she'd ever heard of Clara, but she shook her head. Mom says the past is best left alone, she said, mimicking an adult's tone. Marcus didn't press, but the name lingered, a puzzle he couldn't solve. As winter approached, the house began to shine. Marcus painted the exterior a soft gray, planted tulip bulbs in the yard, and fixed the piano, coaxing a few halting notes from its keys. Lila clapped when she heard it, declaring it magic. But the more time Marcus spent with Lila, the more he noticed the cracks in her world. Her coat was threadbare, her shoes scuffed. One day, she arrived with a bruise on her arm, quickly hidden under her sleeve. Fell off my back, she mumbled, avoiding his eyes. Marcus didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Instead, he bought her a new coat, claiming they found it on sale. Her smile was worth every penny. The turning point came on a snowy December evening. Marcus was hanging Christmas lights on the porch when Sarah, Lila's mother, appeared. She was thin, her face etched with exhaustion, her eyes wary. Lila talks about you all the time, she said, her voice tight. I don't know what you're after, but she's not your kid. Marcus raised his hands, palms out. I'm not after anything. She's a good kid. You just, let her help out. Sarah's shoulders sagged. I'm doing my best, she whispered. Her dad left when she was 2. It's just us. I get it, Marcus said. I'm not trying to be her dad. Used her friend. Sarah nodded, tears brimming, and left without another word. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He thought of Lila, of the house, of the letters to Clara he still hadn't opened. At dawn, he made a decision. He drove to the county records office, digging through dusty files until he found what they suspected. Sarah was Clara Hargrove, Mrs. Argrove's granddaughter. The son who they banished had been her father, a man who they left Willow Creek in shame after a scandal. No one spoke of. Sarah had grown up in foster care, cut off from her grandmother's love, unaware of the house that should have been hers. Marcus' heart raced as he drove back, the unopened letters in his passenger seat. He knocked on Sarah's trailer door, Lila peeking out behind her. Can we talk? He asked. Inside, over cups of weak coffee, he told Sarah everything, the house's history, the letters, the truth. This place was meant for you, he said, sliding the deed across the table. I bought it for $1, but it's yours. It always was. Sarah stared at the deed, her hands trembling. Why would you do this? She whispered. Because it's right, Marcus said simply. And because Lila deserves a home, not just a house. Lila tugged at his sleeve. Does this mean you're staying? Marcus knelt, meeting her eyes. I'm not your daddy, Lila. But I'll be here, fixing things, as long as you need me. Sarah broke down, sobbing, and Lila threw her arms around Marcus, her rabbit squished between them. In that moment, the trailer's cramped walls seemed to expand, filled with something bigger than all of them, kindness, forgiveness, a second chance. Marcus realized he hadn't just rebuilt a house, he'd rebuilt a family, and maybe himself, too. The next spring, Sarah and Lala moved into the Victorian, its walls now worn with new paint and laughter. Marcus took the guest room, insisting he'd move out soon. But he never did. The townsfolk stopped whispering about curses and started talking about miracles. And every evening, as the sun set over Willow Creek, Marcus, Sarah, and Lala sat on the porch, the tulips blooming bright, proof that even the smallest act, a dollar bid, a helping hand, could grow into something beautiful.